Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Donut Shop podcast, where conversations are hot, stories are bold, and the guests get the real deal, or the guests are the real deal. Sorry, I'm just reading something. So today I'm sitting down talking through StreamYard with Dakota Cook, works in the state of Oklahoma. Is also part of a task force. Not your average cop, specializes in criminal interdiction, the frontline work that often leads to major drug busts, gun seizures, disruption of criminal activity. Today, we're going to dive into kind of what that is, and then how subtle clues that you're going to see on just routine traffic stops can lead into high stakes arrests, and then how crime flows, and how this interdiction really is used to break up a lot of different types of crime. So, what's up, Dakota? And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. We got hooked up together with through a mutual friend, and I'm happy to be here and excited to see what we can talk about.
Yeah. So like criminal. So let's kind of kick it off with what you do. On a day to day basis. You're a police officer in Oklahoma. Like, how long have you been a cop? Sort of
Yep.
establish like what you've been through in your career.
So I started my career in 2010. I started with a pretty big metropolitan agency. We have about 150 to 170 sworn officers. One of the agencies that hosts its own academy and stuff like that. So I started there and I still work for them, but I'm currently assigned to a drug task force. I spent 5 years on patrol in that city in afternoon shift and night shift. And then in 2015, and actually in August of 2015, so this is almost my 10th year, I transferred to our narcotics division. And I spent 5 years, almost 6 years undercover doing plain clothes and major investigations like that. And then I transferred in 2021 to our interdiction unit, which gets us assigned to the District 21 Drug and Violent Crime Task Force. And that's where I spend my time now, with two other partners working on I-35 and I-44 south of Oklahoma City. We were mainly patrol three counties, but we have statewide jurisdiction and federal jurisdiction through some other task force and FTO or task force officer positions with different three-letter agencies. But yeah, it's a
Oh, wow.
blast. A lot of cool experiences in that career, especially when I was plain clothes and undercover. The tail end of that is when I got certified as a TFO with one of those agencies and was doing like large scale drug investigations, long term investigations. We actually did a RICO case on some gangs in town, and that
Oh,
was pretty
wow.
successful. So I've had a very eventful and very prosperous career with my experiences, and that's kind of what brought us to today.
Yeah, no, well, that's awesome. So TFO, I've talked about it or mentioned it in another episode with like a U.S. Marshal, but that's a task force officer. So you have to go to a separate like certification for that, like with like the three-letter agencies or
Yeah,
local.
so I'm actually a TFO with both my drug task force interdiction group. We're
Mhm.
considered TFOs with them. So my home agency still pays the bills. They still write my check. But I'm assigned out to this task force where I report every day. So I don't go to shift briefing. I don't really work patrol. I don't take calls for service. I just work for them. And then in that, the federal one, it's kind of a part-time deal to allow us to bridge the gap between charging cases federally and state,
Mm.
depending on quantity and criminal history of the defendant and stuff like that. So it just
Yeah, I
helps us
know.
to be able to charge those in different places.
Yeah, I mean, my agency used to be really big in the drug game. Um, like as far as even bringing I don't know, I have all the background in it and stuff, but they were doing a lot of drug advertising. They were the salesman, and they were getting bags and bags of cash just brought into the city, and Oh, thank you very much. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll take that. We'll take that. So
Right.
is your city reaping any of the rewards of some of this forfeitures, seizures that are happening through this task force that you're doing?
Yeah, that's the benefit of it, right? They lose a body to the task force, but the benefit of it is that that body reaps in seizures that can then be used to help the department in other ways. And so we've been very lucky and unlucky, but in the same token, Oklahoma is the number one producer of black market marijuana in the country. It would seem,
Really?
and so we have a very wide interpretation of marijuana laws and a lot of exploitation of those laws. And so people from Texas, primarily since I work the southern half of the state,
Okay.
a lot of people from Texas that come up where they don't have any marijuana. Ours is medicinal, but it's still very, very
Yeah,
common.
so that's the question. What's Oklahoma's actual state laws in regards to marijuana? How do you get it legally? Obviously, most of us should know how to get it illegal, not because we try to, but you know
Right.
what we've seen on TV.
So it is supposed to be medicinal, and if everybody did what they were supposed to, it wouldn't be an issue. But we have people that break the laws, obviously, and
Yeah. So
dispensaries, and
you get it through dispensaries in the state, like state sanctioned
you
dispensaries.
should, yeah, you should.
Okay.
Everything is supposed to be tracked from seed to sale, they say, but the laws aren't very good, or not everybody follows the laws, and so they exploit the black market. And what
Yeah.
we intercept is people that bring up maybe 50, 100, $200,000 at a time to buy marijuana straight off a grow. And the grow will
Okay.
completely circumvent the whole process and dispose of, you know, 50 pounds of marijuana that wasn't sellable. And it just turns around and goes back to Texas where they can double their
Oh,
money.
so there's a lot of marijuana farmers, let's say,
A
in
ton. Yeah.
Oklahoma. So that and you had said it's the largest black market is what you
Right.
quoted. I didn't write that down, but
Yeah.
so there's a I mean central part of the United States, a lot of farmland, a lot of place to grow. I'm sure people are changing their crops. A lot of us will associate Nebraska with, well, not Nebraska. You're not in Nebraska. You're in Oklahoma, but you're near Nebraska. But I started going into Nebraska, but there's a lot of farmland in Oklahoma,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, outside of the big major metropolitan areas like
yeah,
Oklahoma City and Tulsa, um, Oklahoma's generally considered a rural state,
yeah,
and the 3 counties that I primarily patrol, like, 2 and a half of them are farmland. That's all. I mean, that's all they
yeah.
are, and that there's thousands of grows that are even documented, and then probably thousands of grows that aren't even documented, and it's not that hard. Even if you did all the documentation and you got all the licensing to do what you're supposed to, it's relatively cheap, and you could accidentally or have to dispose of some product, and then it can go out the back door, and that's how they're making money. There's so many dispensaries everywhere, so many grows everywhere, that you've got to exploit something to be able to be a player in the market. And so a lot of these
Okay.
connections that we intercept are the people that are coming up here from out of state, and they try to buy it, out the back door.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can only imagine that probably the sale value of marijuana crop is higher than, say, corn or
Oh yeah.
some
Yeah,
other type of crop. The market is there, but now
for sure.
it's gonna be black market because if they're legally allowed through, as you said, licensing and regulation in Oklahoma to grow it, then yeah. So they find loopholes, and then that's up to you guys. What other what's the state agency like that's issuing those types of regulations or those types of licenses?
So we have, well, one other thing I was going to say before we moved on from that is that
Sure,
the other thing that changes us as Oklahoma from other states that have, medicinal or recreational bills, even, is that we don't have a cap on how many plants can be grown on a grow. And
good
so
question. Yeah, yeah, good
you
point.
could you could fill, like, there's people that come in from out of state and even out of country that buy farmland and they grow 40 acres of marijuana.
Yeah.
And I'm no exaggeration. Every acre will be covered with what we call them hoop houses, but those plastic greenhouses, just made of a dome shape or whatever, and they'll put 100 of them on an acreage, and every
Yeah.
bit of it will be full of marijuana, and then they'll just have people farming all of that every day, and they're ruining the land. Um,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah, yeah,
OBN
they're probably not doing it right. Yeah, because I know on that topic, my friend lives in New York, and he's never been a user, but he's like, I kind of might as well just grow. He's got two in New York. You're allowed to have two plants on your property, like no matter the size of your property,
too.
you're allowed to have two. So he's got two, and so he'd send pictures and stuff, and I just laugh and everything. But that's how it is in New York. So contrary to that, in Oklahoma, you can just as
You
much
could
as you
have
can
two
squeeze.
million. Yeah, you
Yeah.
could have.
Wow.
I've seen grows where they've called in, like we've been part of takedowns where we've shut down a grow that may or may not have licensing. That part's kind of irrelevant if they break the law. And we'll have to show up with the National Guard in dump trucks and just fill the dump trucks with cranes and bulldozers with all the
Yeah.
plants. And,
And then
and
it
then the
just looks
National
like
Guard goes and
Columbia with you
destroys it.
guys like burning it. Yeah,
Yeah.
with the National Guard
Yeah.
burning it
For
like they
sure.
used to do back in the day in Columbia. Wow. Um, on that same topic, that just interests me. I've driven through parts of the plains and parts of the Midwest, and it's like just you see these fields, massive fields, and just to imagine. But yeah, it's not going to be like marijuana stocks just growing like in South Dakota. I was chasing sunflowers looking for that, so it's not going to be marijuana like that. They're going to be in the grow houses or in greenhouse type stuff.
Yeah,
But
but
do
you can
you
certainly
do
see the greenhouses from the different roads and stuff. But
uh
part of the law is that they're supposed to be concealed from public view,
cons-
and so they either have to fence them off with a privacy fence, or they have to put them in hoop houses and stuff like that. But again, that's not
and
hard considering.
and in that sense, do they get a lot of? Because I don't think I don't think people are rushing onto cornfields to steal massive amounts of corn. But do you run into just crime based on people just breaking or trespassing onto that property to try and steal marijuana?
I've found that they've mostly been pretty well guarded.
Okay.
It's a crop worth a lot of money, and a lot of the cases that we've been involved with, they'll have somebody live on the property 24/7, and they'll handle their own business. They don't
Wow.
really want law enforcement around, so they're not
Yeah.
generally going to call us for. In fact, I haven't worked a single case that I know of them going to a grow to steal or vandalize plants or anything. Traversely, though, we've done a ton of dispensary robberies, right? Like the
Yeah.
marijuana that actually does end up in dispensaries will have gang members or whatever just kick the front door, break the glass, and go in, just like a jewelry store robbery that you'd see on TV, and they'll
Yeah.
wipe out the shelves. So that happens a
Yeah.
lot.
It's a low hanging fruit. You pretty much know it's right there, and
Yep.
it's at the point that they want it. They don't have to do anything extra to it. I don't know much about marijuana and what you do to smoke it, but wow, yeah, no, so pretty crazy. So, but and because you're working like the highway interdiction and these out of state people transporting it or coming in and then removing it, um, you've probably stopped some people that were in some crazy moments or some committing some other serious crimes that also have the marijuana involved in it too, right?
Yeah. We still get, the cocaine loads and the fentanyl loads and stuff like that, just like interdiction all over does. But we just get really covered up with that marijuana stuff too. Generally, the way our road is, it's basically set up on the same side. So if we're working northbound I-35, we would generally be looking for like cocaine or heroin or something like that that's coming northbound out of Texas. And at the same time, we intercept a lot of money loads that are coming up to Oklahoma to buy marijuana on that same side of the road. And then if you go
Yeah.
south and watch the southbound side, you could get the hard dope money or the marijuana loads. And it's not hard to fill an evidence room with no exaggeration. I mean, it's not hard to fill an evidence room when people are coming up to pick up 100, 200, 300. pounds at a time. My biggest marijuana load was over 400 pounds. And
Uh-huh.
so that's just, like, we didn't know anything about it, just a pickup bed full of marijuana. I mean, and they're going to take it back to Texas. And so, like, that happens so common or so many times here that, like, we just try to avoid that and catch it before it gets to that point, and then hopefully flip those people into the grow that we can go and take that down too and stop it. So
Yeah, yeah, the larger entity, the larger fish. And so that's what so you say like a pickup truck. So is that what it one of those things, like pickup trucks or covered trucks or even vans?
yep.
Is that what you guys are seeing, like especially these like Sprinter vans and stuff that
So
there's a lot of them on the road.
yeah, pickup trucks. That, you find common trends on any place that you work or anything you do. You kind of pick up on it over time, but um, and I don't want to get like too specific on things that
Yeah.
are, but definitely pickups, especially if you can't see the cargo. Sprinter vans, SUVs, the rentals, those are all common uses for that. If you see a one-way rental that went from, South Texas all the way up to Oklahoma City and then turned around in an hour and is going south the other way, that's an unusual trip and things like that. So those are the things that we look for. And I had one last week that we did not find any cash in it going northbound, but it was a Toro rental, and
Hmm.
those are becoming super common. And when we did not get him southbound, but I watched him on an LPR because I was looking up his tag again after the stop, and the next day he was back in Houston, even though he was from Dallas and started his trip in Dallas. He came northbound through us, turned around within the same day, and then went southbound. It was overnight, so we missed him. And then he had put a tonneau cover on the bed of a rental truck, um,
Hmm.
at the location where he presumably picked up. I would assume a pickup bed full of marijuana, and then
Yeah.
drove it south. And he got stopped in Houston and had some marijuana residue in the bed. We used our network to reach out and touch him, but it we weren't able to get the whole load. So he's obviously dirty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's somebody to maintain a flag on. So you brought up one good point, and I want to get back to the technology like LPRs and stuff like that. But I'm going to drop a commercial real quick, and we'll be right back. Yo, what's up, everybody? Want to let you know I have a new website format. Same website, donutshoppodcast.com. But this time I'm running it through Shopify. Make it much easier to purchase items because aside from the hats that I have up there, Donut Shop Podcast, PVC hats, the blue line snapback, laser mesh, nice and clean on the inside, comfy hats. I have some other swag, t-shirts, can koozies, just some other stuff that I put up there. I'm running the website through Shopify, and so it'll make it real easy for you guys to go on and purchase some stuff and support the show. So thanks for tuning in and following the show, and don't forget donutshoppodcast.com. Thanks. All right, so we're back. So yeah, you said LPRs, license plate readers, huge in researching where cars move. I mean, we love them on the road because we'll be like, oh, where's that car been? An hour ago. And it's like,
Right.
especially if you have a real time crime center that sometimes will chime in, those guys are tapped in and they'll be like, oh, it hit up here, it hit up here, it hit up here. And you can get it all sometimes on your way to a call. So what role does that play like for what you guys do in the task force type stuff, like license plate readers, body cams, databases? Is it helpful or is it distracting?
No, I mean, it can be both. You have to know how to utilize the tools, and we use it primarily to leverage their trips and where they've been against their story, right? So we're looking
Mhm.
for deception. It doesn't matter to me that you came out of Houston, went through I-35 through Dallas, and got up to me at south of Oklahoma City, and that really isn't relevant at all, except for when I ask you where you're coming from, and you lie about it, or
Yeah.
maybe I'm turning around and I catch a car stopped on the south side of the interstate, and I ask you when you came up to Oklahoma, and you tell me 2 days ago, but it was 2 hours ago, right? Those are the deceptive things that we're looking for, and how we use that system. It's interesting that we brought this up because Oklahoma is kind of in a we're in an interesting time right now on LPR data in the law. We have one kind of state statute that talks about one specific LPR system that is used by a very select few law enforcement officers and agencies to issue citations for not having insurance on your car. So
Mhm.
there's a state statute that it runs that program and gives the guidance for how that program is supposed to be used. And now we have legislators and judges that are interpreting the entirety of the law enforcement use of LPRs against that statute, which says it can't be
Uh,
used for anything else. But if you read the statute in its entirety, they're talking about this one specific database, but there's a subsection in there that just basically says it can't be used for anything other than this program. And so we're fighting, defense attorneys left and right, motion to suppress our evidence and stuff like that on off of these LPR. It's usually just the icing on the cake, a one piece of our reasonable suspicion during the stop, but we're
right.
we're constantly fighting that battle with them now and having judges, one judge in the same district, so District 21, we've had judges rule in our favor and against us on the motion to suppress that evidence, and we need some clear guidance on how they're going to interpret that, and we're hoping legislation can fix that soon. But it's been
Yeah,
pretty
so
difficult for us.
that's an important thing. So yeah, there's a couple pieces to expand on in that. That's important for things like our unions and our police organizations or law enforcement organizations to lobby in the state capitol about that legislation to try to get them to work in better interpretations to the bill or to a new bill maybe that branches it off and kind of delineates from what you're saying, where it's like an LPR reader being used to issue citations versus what you guys are using. And then additionally, I know because I talked to Howard Mergler like a week ago, and he's in
Yeah,
Virginia, and he mentioned also a very similar type. This the states are always going to be behind the technology, and they're always going to be trying to interpret. And then you've got things like ACLU and attorneys that are going to fight LPRs because of privacy.
right.
When most of us in law enforcement are going to argue that you don't have any rights to privacy while you're on the state's roadways. You're on roadways with a license plate that's technically owned by the state. You're pretty much renting that license plate.
Yeah,
Your driver's license is not a inalienable right. It's a privilege. So but even in our city, we have a large mall that's got a circle around it that's got 6 roads that finger roads that lead into the mall, other than a couple parking lot cut throughs, but the majority of traffic come through one of 6 side roads. And so that mall says privately, we would like to pay to put these LPRs at the entry exits of those finger roads. And we will pay for it, but we will make the data available to your police department. And I mean, that's a huge thing especially if you have a major crime, yeah, okay, it works for shoplifting and stuff. Oh, they got away in a blue Altima, and then, no, there's a blue Altima that went out that 5 minutes ago. This is the tag.
right.
That's, but God forbid you have a major incident, mass shooting or any kind of shooting and terrorism, anything like that. Those LPRs are going to be a huge for that sort of investigation. But we had a city commissioner that no longer is a city commissioner, but he's an attorney, and he fought against it very hard. And it's like, what about the um, responsibility you have to your residents and then your tourists and visitors that are coming to this mall for safety? Like,
Right.
if you're on the up and up, I'm on the up and up. I'm driving around. I don't care who, how many times my tag gets picked up. I'm not out doing bad things. It's
Well,
it's
and it's
that I worry
important.
about.
It's important to notate too that like the LPRs are usually just using a computer and a camera to capture a sequence of numbers and letters on a license plate. It's not automatically leveraging that against your registration or anything like that. It's just
Yeah.
category making a category of that license plate picture that can be referenced and searched later. So the big argument here is that you're tracking individuals, right? And that you know so much about their life based on where they go and what they do, when you search them in these systems, like putting a GPS tracker on their car.
Yeah.
At least that's the argument from the defense attorneys, but it doesn't work that way, right? It's a snapshot in time that gives us a specific location at a specific time, but it's not giving us turn by turn GPS data. It's not giving us, if you don't go through that particular intersection, or you don't go through that parking lot entry, we wouldn't even know where you were, right? And
Yeah.
that was a discussion that we had on the stand in one of these hearings. Was, out of a 14-hour trip that this individual made, there was 4 cameras that he got scanned by in 14 hours, and so he was exposed to cameras for, let's just say, easy math, 4 seconds. Like that is crazy to think that I can track his every movement, or that I'm invading his privacy when he's got a registration, like you said, plate that is required by law for him to post for public view on a public
Yeah.
roadway. And so we've got to figure that out, and hopefully it happens soon, and we can move on past this. But even outside of interdiction cases, I've been part of cases where LPRs were used to solve homicides,
Hmm.
in the same way that you were talking about, right? We had a neighborhood that put them up in a gated entry, and there was a homicide that happened, and they had the car going in and out of there. And it's not, you don't have to get a warrant or anything, because um, it's a public camera owned by the HOA, and they
Yeah.
pay for it, and they gave the database to the police officers to use and find the car. And that was literally the only way that they solved that case, was connecting him with an LPR being in that neighborhood at that time, because he didn't have any other reason to be there. It turned out
Yeah.
to be like an ex-girlfriend or an ex-boyfriend of, the victim and stuff like that. So to say that they would make it more difficult for us to get that information, I mean, you're not just hurting the drug interdiction world, you're hurting law enforcement as a whole that's trying to solve crimes to protect the public.
Yeah, there's cold cases that are out there that if there was an LPR involved, that they would have been solved a long time ago, because we had a murder that had zero leads other than a white SUV, and then checking of an LPR in the area that's actually a neighboring city. A white SUV came up. Now, granted, that's a lot of things, but it creates a lead, and that's a lead that you can walk down that road. When you go down that road and you find other clues that say that this person is, two people removed from our victim, in
Right.
knowledge, and people know each other. Okay, now we've got something else to work on, rather than, like, what am I going to go through the victim's entire Facebook and question every person that's on their Facebook or on their Instagram and stuff. It takes a lot more time, and we know time is money, and time is the opportunity to get away, and leads dry up, with time and stuff. So, these machines and technology definitely help. So the key is just don't do anything wrong. Don't
Right.
break the law. And if you do, own up to it. I mean, my car's being tracked all the time because it's it's a Tesla. So I'm being
Yeah.
tracked all day, every day. And my wife just has to log on, or, open it up and look, and, oh, there he is. And she can
Right.
tell how fast I'm going. She can tell what music I'm listening to. It's whatever. You just, so
It's
just,
technology.
yeah, just don't do anything bad, because we've got luxuries like a Tesla, and, got to put up with some of the other stuff. Um, like, you work any kind of shifts, or is it just like 24/7?
I mean,
Like, I know
kind
you
of.
said at one point at night you missed something, but you can't always be on.
Right. So we work 410s typically. Our bosses don't really drive hard on when those 410s happen. We generally work the morning time when it's cooler. But there's been times where we said, hey, it's summertime, it's getting hot. It's too hot for our canines during the day. So we're going to work nights for a couple weeks and get through the 100-degree stuff. And, our bosses don't care. Or if we, have something going on, maybe with the kids that evening, we come in early and can go do
So you
the
got
school
flexibility.
function. Yeah, they don't. There's
Yeah.
only 3 people that do what we do. And so as long as our bosses uh, they basically say, as long as you have another guy out there with you, and you get your time in, we trust you. Just do your job. So that part's great.
Yeah. So what like who do you see are these people that are bouncing around going to Houston and going around? Are they like deeply involved people that do it all the time, or is it your run of the mill just general person that gets kind of held up? I mean, there's the one what is it, the Mule, the Clint
Right.
Eastwood movie where he did that, like who are you seeing in these cars or in these
I would
vehicles that are
say
hitting?
it's probably just as evenly split, one versus the other, right? We've had cases where the people swore up and down it was their first trip they've ever made, and they kind of acted like it was their first trip, really, really nervous. You actually caught some that were way more experienced and very calm under pressure and through the interview process, and you're just kind of scratching your head. And then I remember a couple cases off the top of my head where it was like, I think I want to search this car, but I there's just not a whole lot here, and they give consent for whatever reason because I guess they think we weren't going to find it, and then we do, and I was surprised even myself of like, oh crap, it was actually here. So I think it's just about as even. The money is a big lure for people, especially when it comes to moving like large quantities of cocaine or fentanyl. Like they're getting paid very well to make some of these trips. Some of them.
Mhm.
I remember a couple guys that came out of El Paso and they ran a cocaine load to Detroit, Michigan. I caught them on the return trip with their pay money, but in 2 days' work, driving from El Paso, Texas to Detroit, Michigan, and back, um, they did it in it was 2 days or 3 days, awful lot of driving, but they made 35 grand. And,
Wow.
and that's what they had in the car. So when I debriefed one of them, the guy that was kind of in charge, he explained that, mom's out of work, dad died. What dad was involved with, I don't know, but he's got brothers and sisters at home. Mom can't make enough money doing whatever. He was offered an opportunity to make life changing money and he took it. Um, and it
Yeah.
changed his life when it worked. When he goes home and he gives mom 30 grand, she's able to pay the mortgage or whatever and keep the lights on for kids and pay for everything. But usually the second or third time, fourth time, maybe you get caught. And so who knows? I mean, it can go either way.
So I've heard in a few different places or read it just that like these people are sometimes, so you're not like, are you getting in like car chases with some of them? Like where's the degree of car chases or gamesmanship where they stonewall you, prevent you, or do you see that? Because I feel like I had heard somewhere that like the cartels and stuff are basically telling these people, if the cops stop you, just give up. We're moving enough product. You're the low hanging fruit, and you got caught. Like
Yeah.
you,
I mean, I
you
would
kind of
say,
understand what I'm getting at.
yeah, generally speaking, Um, we don't get into car chases with every load or anything like that. Now, I will say we get into more than the average patrol officer because depending on who's driving that car and what their criminal history is like, they're not always perfectly clean individuals and got a spotless record. We've caught
Yeah.
those people too, and usually they pull over and give up easy, and they'll probably get a probation sentence to be fair.
Oh yeah.
And then there's some people that we've chased till the wheels fall off, and it just kind of depends on the situation. But a lot of those people, they got something violent in their history. They've been caught before. Sometimes even we've caught like the same car or the same individual. We've caught them and then put them in our systems to watch out for them, and then they go by again, and now the chase is on. And I remember one car that ran from me and ran from the highway patrol out here on 3 occasions total, and we were not able to catch it most of the time, but we basically figured out when he would make these trips overnight. And then us and the highway patrol and a couple agencies, like, we were just set up one night waiting for him, and there was nowhere for him to go when he
Wow.
when he took off again. I mean, really hot rodded out Durango, but it ended up upside down in a ditch because when we're ready for it and you can't outrun it, then then the highway patrol will flip you over. So
Flip you over. So are you guys or Highway Patrol like the pit group, or do you guys do like the spike strips up there? I say up there because I'm in
um,
South Florida.
so the highway patrol up here will we are very blessed that they like to take over those violent or fast moving pursuits, and they like to
Uh-huh.
take care of business. They don't have the GSP reputation, but they'll chase them if we ask them to help us. They're always there to help us, and we're very grateful for that. Our policy at the task force is, because we have so few vehicles and one TVI once turned into a shooting. Our boss is generally not happy with TVIs unless it's life, unless lethal force is kind of authorized. Um,
Tactical vehicle intervention.
yes, sir.
Oh, right.
Some
All right.
people
Hey, pretty good. Ding,
call it
ding, ding.
PIT, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, good. They call it TVI here in Oklahoma. So
Okay.
PIT versus TVI is the same thing, but
Okay.
we had one that went pretty south 2 years ago with a
Yeah.
different guy. Turned into a shooting. It was a pretty big deal. And so after that, our task force chief was like, "Hey, like let's wait until we get a lot more help, and hopefully like allow OHP to take over those pursuits, and they'll have more help and more people available." So
Yeah.
it's kind of
So you
sidelined for
guys,
us at the moment.
are you guys in like unmarked but lit up unmarks,
Yep.
or
So
okay,
I have a all blacked out Tahoe. It's
nice.
very clearly a police car, push
Yeah.
guard and lights everywhere, but they don't have any distinct markings on them or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Cool.
we're
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
not
cool.
not looking like the normal police in the ditch, that's for sure. So
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let me just see. I think we've pretty much hit most of these. You know, what's an example of something that that you guys have been able to roll something up even further, like up the chain, or gotten into something bigger. Because you could. I mean, our drug guys used to turn a dime bag into $500,000 seizure.
sure.
Not in the same night, but sometimes a couple days you might be able to work out a major seizure. What's a story or a scenario where you kind of done that?
So my favorite example of that, and it's hopefully something that I'm going to work into the presentation when we go to the Justice X conference. Um, but my favorite story of that was a lady from Michigan, I believe. Uh, no, Wisconsin. It was Wisconsin, and she had made a trip from Wisconsin down to Dallas, Texas, and picked up money, vacuum sealed money, and also about 100 pounds of weed. Now,
Mhm.
I would have loved for her to debrief and figured out exactly why she picked up both, because they generally aren't together, but it didn't work out that way. So we arrest her. She had 100 or 150 pounds of weed and about $100,000 in vacuum sealed cash. And so she goes to jail, and we listen to the jail calls and stuff, because that's what we're supposed to do in investigations. We follow through to the end, like I did when I was in plain clothes. It was good habits learned there.
Yeah.
And about 6 months later, she comes through town again in a different car, and the registration sticks out to me, being a Wisconsin plate, and the name on the registration was her ex-husband that she was talking to on jail calls. And then we were able to stop her again and roll her up again with just a little bit less than before, but still quite a bit. And so, with that being said, we were able to connect back to Wisconsin and refer them to the case where they ended up seizing both cars, a house, and found in her house about $100,000 in cash, and then also a room in the basement that was dedicated to the sale and distribution of marijuana and stuff like that. And so, like, that to me was a really good example of turning the highway into something bigger. Like, she lost probably $500,000 in cash
Yeah.
and two vehicles and a house. And she's spending 15 years in Department of Corrections here in Oklahoma before she's answering to her charges up in Wisconsin. And then we get cases sometimes, in town that we can refer back to our narcs. And the Airbnbs are being used right now pretty heavily in Oklahoma. And so if we catch somebody and we find an Airbnb address, maybe in their phone or something, or they can refer us to where they're going, like they want to cooperate, then we can take off the people bringing the load to the Airbnb. when it shows up, and that happens quite a bit too. So stuff like that. That's
So they're using Airbnbs to like divide it all up as like a home base.
yeah. So think, maybe you know, maybe you don't, but rental cars are super commonly used in the drug
Right.
smuggling trip just because they're anonymous, right?
They're
Think,
anonymous.
think
The
the
person
same
doesn't own them,
thing.
so they don't really have much to lose. It's not like we're going to be able to seize a rental car and stuff like that. So the same thing
Right.
with a house. You're not going to
Same
have to
thing.
forfeit the house. It's not a hotel, so you don't have a hotel clerk going, "Yeah, they carried 17 giant duffel bags into our motel,"
Yeah.
and you
They're just
know, and they're
driving in the garage, and pulling in the garage and doing the business behind closed doors. And so,
right.
and these neighbors of Airbnbs, they don't know who's supposed to be there and who's not, unless something
True.
really looks suspicious, they're not going to call because it's an Airbnb, like people come and go. So
Yeah, they know
that's
that
very
their
common.
neighbor rents it out 6 months out of the year, and there's people coming and going all the time. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's a thing, man. That's definitely a lot more prevalent, and it's just so easy now because you can just boop, just rent it on the app, and then you're in, and then you got a door code. You don't have to deal with anybody, so you don't have a homeowner that's looking at this person in the face saying
Right.
you sound sketchy. You don't
Right.
have a real estate agent. There's no agent or anybody dealing with them. So it's a wow, that's a huge.
And
Um,
Toro now, like those personal rentals, right? That's another trend that's coming up and becoming more and more common. We're finding it all the time where we'll stop somebody, think it's a personally owned car, that it's on a personal
mhm.
trip, and it ends up being a Toro rental that somebody that they rented. And so, like, I don't know, maybe someday we'll get to a point where we can recognize, maybe they put a sticker on the car or something, or some flag in the registration that we can tell. But right now, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that's deceiving us. And we are finding a lot of smuggling loads in those too.
Right, because I've rented that. I've used Turo a few times on vacations just because the price was right, or you're sometimes in an area where rental cars are slim pickings, especially nowadays post pandemic. The rental car industry is declined a lot. Um, but yeah, I mean there used to be things like in Florida when we had issues where German tourists were getting murdered. All rental cars said Manatee County on the license plates, but that's also how bad guys figured out in Miami who to rob. They would rob
Right.
these tourists, and then they'd end up getting shot and killed sometimes during the robberies. So the state did away with the use of Manatee County as rental car labels, so
Right.
because that ended up being a red flag for crime. So I'm going to drop a commercial, and then I got a couple more other questions, and then we can talk about your training company and stuff
Okay.
to go through. So I will be right back. What's in the cup? Guys, what's in my cup? Blackout Coffee Company. We joined up with them. I've been drinking it and I enjoy it, and I think you may enjoy it as well. So you can go over to our website and click the link, or you can just go to their website, blackoutcoffee.com, and use our coupon code to get 10% off. The code is DSP10. So go over, check it out. All right, we're back. So, what do you do to kind of keep you mentally and emotionally sharp? There's probably a lot of time that you spend downtime, like watching cars just drive by on the highway. What do you do to keep you, because then otherwise, then you got to be like on point, like when it comes to
So
it.
it's actually kind of funny that you asked that question at this particular time because I've talked to a bunch of coworkers and other networked guys that do interdiction all over the country, and it's generally slower right now. Like we're struggling, I would say, as a community of interdictors, like loads are slow, and that makes it even harder when you're not getting the benefits of what you're doing all the time. There was a time where it wasn't uncommon for us to hit a load a week, and now it's been a couple months for me to hit something really worth talking about, and that's a lot of cars you watch go by and a lot of traffic stops you make. And so that was part of it. And then last week, my car broke down and it was at the dealership getting fixed, and it was a wiring gremlin, so you never know how long those are going to take to
Mhm.
fix. And so then I'm in a backup car that doesn't have the same equipment, and my mojo's off, and my My partners were on vacation, so I had somebody else with me, which was great, but it just changes up your rhythm, right? Like, I'm glad somebody could come out and ride with me. I'm grateful for that, but it just changes things up of what you're used to doing and used to working with. And then, it was just a whole one thing after the other. And so the question, to get back to your question, like, it happens, and you'll go through down times and up times. And I think to stay on point is to maintain um, how do I want to put it, a schedule of what I usually do at almost every day. So every day I wake up, I go out to the garage, and I have a home gym in my garage, and I get an hour workout.
Mhm.
And then 4 or 5 times in a week, probably, well, closer to 3 or 4 times a week, I train jujitsu, and I get to coach, and I coach the kids class, and I'm one of the coaches in the adults class. And that has kind of stabilized me too, right? That's kind of my therapy, my mental health place. the
Hell yeah.
guys the guys that we train with are a lot of cops that train there, so they get it. Walk in, how's your day? Man, my car's still broke, like, things are still, and things frustrate me when I'm out working, and then I go in there, and my mind gets fixed, because you can't think about those things that are bothering you when you're in that place. It's like my therapy place. Instead of sitting on a couch in a therapist's office, I get on the mats with my friends, and we get to forget
Try
about
to
all that
try
stuff.
to choke them out.
Yep, it's hard to
Try,
think about
try.
things that are bothering you when you can go unconscious or get your arm broke. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
If you start dwelling on life while somebody's trying to choke you,
yeah,
it's gonna cause blackouts for
you
sure.
get to take a nap. So,
Yeah, you go sleeping,
but man,
or you
we
tearing
say
in.
it. Yeah, we say it all the time. My coach actually made fun of me one day because I walked in, and he could tell I was frustrated, and the day didn't go the way I wanted it to, and things were. I think it was the day my car broke, actually, and I was super frustrated about it. And then I got on the mats, and about 15, 20 minutes later, I was singing and, like, dancing around in between rolls. And he's like, "What do you usually do this? Like, I've never seen you act like this." I'm like, "Man,
Yeah,
I'm just not mad anymore, right? Like, it's hard to be mad when I'm having fun with my friends,
yeah,
and when I'm getting good exercise, and when I'm learning something." And so I'm forgetting about the day, right? I'm gonna choose to do better. I'm gonna choose to move on, and be and get better at something today, because I really do embody, or try to embody, that mindset of, like, there's room for improvement every day in some aspect of my life, whether it's being a husband, a father, a Christian, a cop, physically fit, or jujitsu, like, wherever it is, there's room for improvement for me every day. And
mhm,
um, I'm going to try to take advantage of those opportunities. It may not be that I can get better at work today, but it might be that I can tighten up my armbar, or it might be that I can teach my kids something, or it might be that, I can have a chat with my wife on the back porch when the sun goes down over a beverage or whatever, and we can just talk.
yeah,
And, some things like that, that kind of help ground me. The
yeah.
job's not everything, so we have to take it in stride. And there's facets of my life that, one thing might be screwed up, and generally speaking, the other things balance me out, right? So that's
And
what
that
what I
is
try to do.
like, and you speak to it. Yesterday I was at the Bleeding Blue Incorporated. It's South Florida based group, but they had an excellent conference yesterday during the day that for mental health, and they had presenters that had attempted suicide, or first responders, either medics or police officers that just pretty much like lived by the bottle, got injured, had issues, so there's all those sort of things. And so you bring up the topic of balance. You can't we're going to see a lot of stuff, do a lot of stuff. You're not necessarily going to domestics all day every day, finding the bodies at a house during a well-being check or whatever, dealing with families, but you're dealing with other stressors for you, and for things that you feel that are important in the
Right.
job. And when you're not accomplishing those, like you said, over the summer, whatever we want to blame it on, people, drug dealers decide, or drug runners decide they want to take vacations too, and they're all on vacation, going to Europe and enjoying their life over the summer. You guys are drying up a little bit, and there's stressors and frustrations, just like a lot of people. But for some of us that are like really passionate about what we do and take it all very seriously, like when we're not getting it. Oh, and our buddy Kenny was saying the same thing. He was saying that he's pretty dry right now, and
Right.
he's twitching, and
Yeah.
he needs it. He was saying the other night on an open mic, that he's been a little while. So, and his dog too. But so, it's important for all of us, as you said, to remember to have those outlets, those different things. You've got the kids, you've got, your wife. You can have just like a great conversation with. You've got friends in the hobby and the sport of jujitsu that you can play and do all that, and balanced with physical fitness. So we all need to do that. We can't just sit there and get pissed off about the job and come home, hit the bottle, and then go to bed, and
Right.
just not outlet, not decompress, not, you know, it eats away at us, and it will beat us up for sure.
Right.
So Leo Den, right?
Yes,
Leo
sir.
Den?
Yep.
Leo Den, tell me a little bit about what led you into training, and kind of where you're going with it, and then where I'm going to meet you in person, hopefully,
Yeah.
coming up soon. Yeah.
So, a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I started teaching for another company, and I found a little bit of a passion there, right? Too. At that time, I had been through some stuff. I was working more on the plain clothes side. I wasn't interdiction, but I was a productive, proactive patrol officer,
Yeah.
and I was teaching a class that basically taught those things that I did over on my patrol career, and coupling that with my experience in buying dope and working surveillance cases and doing long-term conspiracies and drug cases like that, like drug enforcement's always been my passion. And so I really do feel like that's the majority root cause of a lot of our problems that we have to deal with in law enforcement. So if we can focus our efforts there, then hopefully, again, it's an unmeasurable statistic, but if you can throw away a drug dealer for dealing drugs, then maybe you don't have as many drug fiends that are breaking into cars and stuff like that. So it's a cause and effect thing. But um, I started focusing my investigations there. I got into narcotics and then was kind of using that class to bridge the gap between what patrol officers can or know how to do versus what investigators could do and know how to do. And so that was what the focus of that class was. I taught it for a little while and then kind of realized that I thought I had a little bit more to give to the profession, and I wanted to kind of branch out on my own. And so I started Leo Den in 2021, and it's, I would say, kind of a grassroots startup thing. I didn't have a big name behind me. I still don't have a big name, and I don't feel like it's very well known around the country. I would say people around the Oklahoma, maybe Kansas, Texas area kind of know me well, but we're trying to grow and push out. And I was fortunate to find people in the industry that want to help for the right reasons, like Kenny
Mhm.
Williams, Nick Jackson, Sean Pardesi, Bauer Brown. Those guys have been hugely influential in helping me grow as an instructor, helping my company grow and get out there, and welcoming me kind of into the fold. And so, as I've made those relationships with those guys, I think we've all kind of gotten better, or helped the industry. Instead of seeing each other as competitors in a different law enforcement training company, we're
Totally.
kind of like coworkers in the goal of teaching cops how to be more proactive, how to know case law better, how to be more impactful and effective with their day and their strategies. And so that's kind of where Leo Den was born, was out of that. A funny story, but Sean Pardesi and Bauer Brown came to Oklahoma, and I attended both of their classes and was kind of sidelined talking to them about this idea I had in my head about starting this company. And both of them were like, "You've got to do it, man. Like, if you've got the draw for it, your heart's there, your mind's there, you have to do it." And so that's where it came from. And they've been huge on helping me get to that next level, and expanding the knowledge of my class and getting me exposed to people, and helping me book classes and giving venues to us to, hey, this is a great venue. They love to host. The cops there love to train. And
Yeah.
so that's great. And that's kind of where we've gotten to today. I teach a class called Proper Patrol, and it's a 2-day class. I have a different way of teaching. I I spent a lot of time in college. My
Okay.
major was in pre-med, and
Oh
I was
wow.
going to be a doctor. And I feel like I had a radical encounter with God that changed my mind and led me to law enforcement, and led me to the SWAT team, led me to narcotics. And so I use that bridge. Like I know what I need to be doing. And it's using my experiences that I've had to help bridge the gap for the next cops coming up.
Hell
And
yeah.
so this class that I teach, I have a mindset to teach that's a little bit different than what I had experienced, and that is more adult-based learning through conversations, not lecture. So we have a presentation that we teach, and I show videos and dash cams and stuff, but we also parallel to that presentation go along with a scenario that develops over the course of like a shift for a patrol officer. So we start with some mundane call for service that they would take almost every day as a patrol officer, and develop it through this scenario and conversation over time in the next 2 days to make an arrest, prosecute it in court, run into the case law that they're going to have as patrol officers and the issues that are going to come up, and making decisions to make the best case and put the best evidence forward. And so I feel like they walk away with that more emboldened to use case law properly, to be confident in their decision making. It's the way that I like to learn, more hands on than
Yeah,
just
that's
being
that's
talked to.
interesting. That's interesting how you say you work through the progression of it, whereas like in academies and stuff like that, or even in just general classes, you're going to have certain topics and that's it, and then it's incumbent on you as the officer, which some of us are just idiots, to try to figure out how to put all that stuff together and make yourself well rounded. No,
Right.
nobody's probably like you're doing, breaking it down to where it's like from start to finish, because I mean, just goes along the lines of sometimes that people will ask me when they're in the backseat of their car on their way to jail. Okay, so what's my next step, or what do I have to do then to get out? And I go, honestly, from when I drop you off, dude, I don't have a clue what happens to you, and and there's a lot of things. Obviously, I know the basics of you're going to get your first appearance, you'll probably get a bond amount, you probably need to talk to a bond agent and stuff. But I'm not giving this guy advice,
Sure.
essentially, unless they're a sweetheart. But yeah, I mean, so to work your way through getting dressed and going to briefing all the way through to 2 weeks, 3 months later when you might be in court or might have a depot, a pretty interesting
Yeah.
way to
So
look at things. So
that's
very
the
cool.
way that the class is set up. It takes 2 days to get through it, and I use a ton of my interdiction videos because that's the material that I have available to talk
Why
about
not?
these topics. But it's not really designed to be an interdiction class. There's giants in that field that are teaching way more than I know how to do myself. Even I mean, I haven't been doing interdiction that long. I don't feel like I'm an expert in that, but I do
But
know
you
how
can
to be a
use
cop.
Yeah, and you can use that experience. That experience can come back to the road.
Right,
There's things like people like me that get kicked back to the road and then you're back on the road, but you can use your experience in specialized units and the things that you've done to make your job as a patrol officer, the real police work, the original police work job on road patrol, to do it better. To and
right.
then to teach the other people like me. I'm a 20-year guy now, and I've got some probationary guys on my platoon, and so we try to talk to them, especially in their first couple weeks on their own. You're lost in the sauce when you start this job, and it's incumbent on guys with experience to sit there and go, okay, so what'd you think about that? Did you think about it this way? Did you know you can go this way? Oh my god, and there's
Yeah,
epiphanies. But then once in a while, they might be able to present something to us that we've never thought of in 20 years of doing the job. So it's
that's
sharing
that's what's fun
knowledge.
about those conversations. I get to teach in all over different places, different states, and different communities that police differently. And the scenario might be the same class to class, but the way it develops is always different. And
Yeah,
so, like, different conversations and things that they say and do, and one agency might spend more time doing physical evidence up front, and then another agency might do a better job at finding surveillance and following through with that after the fact. And so the way that these guys think and develop, like, each class, I think I learn a lot from, and that makes us
yeah.
all better. So I'm not the instructor that'll stand up and I've done it all, seen it all. I'm the best of the best, but I have something to give, and I feel like that's important to stay humble and to learn from everybody at every class. And that's kind of where my values are. Is that we're not meant to be stoic creatures presenting a PowerPoint without any interaction. It should be a place where they can come and feel like they can learn. And if there's this big wall in between your instructor and the students, then they don't feel like they can get the same amount out of it. I've got students that call me still, text me, Facebook message me, "Hey, I've had a call. Can you remind me of this case law?" Like, that's what we're here for. It's not for, putting butts in seats in classes. That's great. That's
Yeah,
the
counting
goal, but
stacks. Yeah.
it's not. I really genuinely think that there's more to give to law enforcement as a community, and we're missing a little bit of the boat when it comes to proactive police work because of COVID and staffing and budgets and
Mhm.
all of those things. And so it's time to focus our efforts on that stuff and to bring it back and make us all better.
Yeah, and I've been wanting to say this since you've been talking about this. It's important because I know places like where I am. You can go to the police academy and you can take your general classes that the state sort of curriculum offers you extra money in your paycheck to take and do some of those. But I think it's important to take classes from trainers such as yourself that are active police officers or maybe just out of the career that employ some of these tactics and employ some of this stuff on a day-to-day basis. It's important to go to those that are, let's just say, non-sanctioned ones that your agency may not pay for, that you may be paying for on your own, to get better. And like you said, you could learn stuff from somebody that comes from a different part of the country and
Right.
happens to be coming to South Florida, and they're going to teach a little different style than maybe what we do in South Florida that maybe nobody's thought of or nobody's had experience with. And it's like, oh, I think I have been seeing that lately. Maybe I'll use that approach. And
Right.
it's important to get that mix. And in one of those opportunities coming up in April, the April 21st to the 23rd in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, it's going to be a blast. The Justice Academy X um, training conference. I was
Conference.
like,
Yeah.
symposium, no, conference. There's gonna be all kinds of trainers like yourself that are gonna
Yep.
run classes there. It's $99 in the door.
It's hard to
And
beat that.
it's insanely good. But I will be retired, but I'm like excited because I'll be there, and I am definitely going to. I think I'll get a vendor pass or something like that. So I think
Sweet.
I'm going to try to audit some of these classes to the college mind of yourself. I'm going to sit in the back and soak up some of the knowledge because, hey, I need some of the knowledge for these podcasts too. So it's good to do it. So I encourage people to look it up. That information will be down in the description about that conference, because any of the trainers that are coming on that Kenny helped refer to this podcast, I'm kind of using that as a bridge. And then
Sure.
I'll also link your credentials and your stuff, so people can check you out. And anybody in could you stay sort of local to, I keep wanting to say Central America, but Middle America, to the Oklahoma area?
Um, That's not the goal. Like, the goal is to take it nationally. Now,
For
I'll be
sure.
the first to admit that, going to classes or booking classes super far away they've been hard to fill because people don't know the company and don't know who I am and what I'm about.
Yeah.
If there's an agency that wants to host, I'm willing to book it and willing to give it a hard shot to do our best to branch out. Our goal is to be one of those companies that travels and brings our best possible class and course for everyone to every part of the country to make everybody better, and work together to make that happen. So that's
Cool.
entirely my goal. So
Awesome. Do you have anybody else that you work with, like in under Leoden, or that
so
comes with you on some of these training?
I do have another an instructor. He's a tactical medic on our SWAT team with
Oh, wow.
me. He is a nurse practitioner, Metaflight guy, does all those, like, he's got more credentials behind his name than I don't even know. I mean,
Yeah.
His day job is supporting very, very sick and dying patients on an ECMO machine while they're being moved in air ambulances and in mobile ambulances from one part of the state to another. I don't even know what an ECMO does, but it's heart and lung bypass stuff.
Yeah.
So
It
he's
pulls your bloods, it pulls your blood out, cleans it, gets it back into your body. Saved my sergeant's life during COVID. He was
wow,
his lungs were plastic bags for grocery stores basically, and the ECMO allowed it did the job of a lot of his internals, and really helped with the blood and stuff, and made it so that his lungs were able to heal. And basically they were just pulling it, they would turn it off and see if he would almost die, and then they turn it back on, and they did that enough over a period of time to like wean his body off of it, and pulled him right back out. So a lot
yeah.
of times they've
So
used it for children, but during COVID times they started really finding the ability to use it for adults. So it's a beautiful thing. And then on a life flight type stuff where they're transformed to a more adequate hospital or somewhere where they can specialize in whatever those people need. So I know I beat
yeah,
around a little bit of what it does. I'm not 100%, but that's, I mean,
it gives
if I
the
can talk
idea.
about, if I can talk
You
about
know,
my sergeant surviving what he survived, I'll do it any day. So
that I mean, it's
crazy stuff.
amazing. I know
Yeah.
he's that instructor that we have. His name's Zach, and Zach is one of those guys that, and I'm sure you know him too. The medics that you trust, the guys you've ready to go through a door with. You know, he's
Yeah.
done training for the team. He's put his medicine into practice in the field, and if you ever needed a medic on duty in an emergency where you thought you might die, like that's the guy that you want right behind
Yeah.
you or right beside you to start plugging holes and fixing stuff. He does a class for us called Respond and Rescue, and he takes some of that equipment for like tactical critical casualty care, tourniquets and stuff, and teaches people how to actually apply them, what needs to be done in the field, and what you know probably could wait until a trauma center. How to save your partner's life, how to save your own life.
Mhm.
He brings some of the strategy and type of equipment out there so that they can, you know, apply a tourniquet on what would otherwise be like a bleeding limb. You know, they have, you know, things that look like legs and they can pump blood and you get to put a tourniquet on it or pack a wound or do a chest seal on a dummy that, you know, needs a chest seal and you can see how
Yeah.
they. So what is cool is that he has done that class, and on one of them, I went to it to film and get some material for it, and I'm watching these students that were kind of shy about jumping up and getting involved at first. To the end of the day, like he's calling out different things for them and saying, "What do you see? What do you need to do next?" And these students that started off really shy, not wanting to be like the first guy involved or whatever, or like
Yeah.
yelling out, "He needs this, he needs that," and moving through the scenario on their own. And it was like fascinating, right? Like these people are now ready for the field. Not that they didn't have any idea what they were doing before. It's ground shattering material, but we don't practice it enough. And so
Right.
now
Yeah.
we have a class that we can put out there in the field, and he can travel and do some of this stuff as well. And you know, you walk out of there confident in your emergency medicine, you know, and that's something we as cops don't get enough training in, to be confident in it. And like that's I'm really proud of that class and him for that.
That's that sounds cool. Yeah, and you're exactly right, because a lot of times we are the first people on scene. We're almost always the first people on scene, and everybody's looking at us to save the day. It's not always the medics and the firefighters. They come in and they clean up a lot of the damage that we do. But I love being able to set the scene properly for these guys to come in and do their work. I don't want to have messed someone up to make them have to work even harder.
Right.
So it's important to be able to tag team them in the best way possible. Hey guys, I got this, and this done. Here you go. This person's thankfully still alive when you guys are here, and now you guys can do your life saving work and get them to
Right.
the hospital or get them stabilized better than I could. So yeah, super important stuff. So
Yeah.
the field medic, I've seen a lot more of that lately. In training courses. people offering that and stuff. So it's
Yeah.
real important. Another one that we should all sign up for. So yeah, dude. Well, very good. We definitely hit the hour mark. If you have anything else you want to add, or um,
I would just tell everybody my website in case they want any
sure.
information for any of these classes or to reach out and contact us. There's a contact us link there, but it's real easy. www.leodenllc.com. So
Cool.
leodenllc.com. And then you can contact us. You can book a class with us through that link, or you can ask for more information on hosting a class. We don't charge the host agencies to host the class. In fact, we try to give them free seats as soon as we get enough paid spots to get the instructor paid, like how to get us out there and everything's
Yeah.
covered. Then about that mark, we're able to give some free seats to the host agency as well. So free training. The options are out there, and we have a ton of it coming up. We're booked through the beginning part of 2026. So,
Sweet, man. What about social media? Social
yep. So
media?
we have for law enforcement only, we have a private Leoden Facebook group. We do vet everybody that comes into that just to make sure that we keep it law enforcement only,
Yeah.
because bolos are put there and different shared information are there. That's a big part of Leoden, and I didn't say what it actually stands for, but it's law enforcement officer development, education, and networking. And that networking thing is one of the big keys that I learned when I was undercover, right? The jurisdiction that I have doesn't just stop the drug game. And so I learned how to connect with people all over the state. And then when I went to interdiction, it's all over the country. And networking is the one of the missing keys of law enforcement. And when we figure that out, we can make a lot better cases. That's actually where I'm going to focus my class at the conference, on the networking side. But when we make that connection, we can do a lot better. So that's what that Facebook group does, is it allows us to have a one central place for us to be able to reach out and get an officer from Wisconsin or whatever,
Mhm.
and then share tips and tricks. And hey, I saw this today. Fentanyl pills are now not all blue; they're multicolored and look like
Yeah.
this. So just pay attention to that and be safe. And then I have an Instagram account. It's Leoden Training, and or at Leoden Training, and then I have a TikTok too. Those are not law enforcement only; they're more open source, but that private Facebook group, and then we have a business profile on Facebook as well. But
Cool.
that's what we
Yeah,
got.
no, you bring up a great point about networking. I was in the public information officer field, and we consistently networked. It was all about all the training courses that I went to through FEMA and stuff. I was sharing cards and contacts, making friends with people on Instagram from the class, staying in touch with people, creating local chat groups for, like, as a public information officer. We're not fighting crime, but we're fighting information. So if we need some help with something, or we need an idea of a way to share a message, you reach out to somebody from another agency. Hey, have you ever done this? Have you ever worked with this website application? Have you ever talked to this reporter? Yeah. Oh yeah, you need to talk to them this way. You need to give them information this way. There's just so much of a wealth of resource, and we're not in competition with each other. It's not a
Right,
competition to be a better cop, and I'll show you how to be a better cop. I'll show you how to be a better public information officer. Like you said, a better training company, a better training officer. No, we're all trying to do the same thing to make the industry better, to make the officers safer, more knowledgeable, and get crime off the streets, or drugs off the streets, to prevent crime, all that stuff. So
right.
yeah, networking is huge. So that's and it's something that everybody should teach, and everybody should encourage. Networking, I mean, I got to do it a lot with this podcast stuff. Got to talk to people, gotta link up with people, because my sphere might be small, and then once you start linking up with people, then you get to talk to more interesting people. So
Right.
you got to do it. Very
Eh,
important.
And I think you'll be surprised. I mean, you might not, but like the general officer would be surprised on how that benefits them, right? The
Oh
neighboring
yeah.
agency right next over might be dealing with the same kind of burglary ring that you are, or like
Hmm.
on our case, we have people that do the same crime. It's not just always drugs. Sometimes it's fraud. Sometimes it's whatever, and we have to deal with other agencies. And so to be able to reach out and say, hey, I need a guy from Kansas City that deals with retail theft, and I can find somebody, and get a hold of somebody to help make a case, because I found, a rental car full of Red Bull, so
Yeah. 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 Where did they
stuff
get
like
this from?
that. What's
Yeah.
going on? So that's the biggest part that we're missing. The criminals are doing it in prison, so we need to
Yeah.
learn how to be better at that. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, great point. So, all right, man. Well, thank you very much. And so I'll end it. Just stick around because we got to make sure everything uploads. And then to everybody else checking it out and listening, all the information like that he gave me and stuff's all going to be down in the description, so you can hit links, check all that out. Give him a follow on social media, and we'll see you guys on the next one. And then I'll see you, Dakota, in Myrtle Beach.
Yes,
So,
sir.
all right. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.